Hello, hi, and welcome back to yet another episode of Software Engineering. Myself, Fazira Razak Hamza, Assistant Professor in PG Department of Computer Science, and I'm here to present on the course Principles of Software Engineering. In the previous episode, I have spoken about software process and software engineering practice. So now let's move on to what is a framework activity. So this is a figure depicting the process framework activity. We have inside the process framework, we have umbrella activities. Inside the umbrella activities, it is being divided into a framework activity where there is action, task set, etc. So before getting to know a framework activity, let's see what we have defined in the previous episode. What is software process? So, software process is a collection of work activities, actions, and tasks which are being performed to get a work product. Each of these activities, actions, and tasks reside within a framework or model that defines their relationship with the process and with one another. So, all these actions, activities, and tasks define their relationship with the process which we are implementing. Each framework activity is populated by a set of software engineering actions. Each software engineering actions is defined by a task set that identifies the work tasks that are to be completed. Not only the work tasks, the work products that will be produced and the quality assurance points and also the milestones that indicate the progress of the software. We all know that the framework activity or the process activity is related to 5 steps, right? Communication, planning, modeling, construction, and deployment. In addition, we have a set of umbrella activities. What are they? Project tracking and control, risk management, quality assurance, configuration management, technical reviews. They are all applied through the process. Now, another important aspect of software process is called process flow. So let's see what is process flow. It is how the framework activity and the actions and tasks that occur within each framework activity are organized. I said no, software processes associated with 5 activities. What all are they? Communication, planning, modeling, construction, and deployment. We'll see how these activities are arranged in a process. So let's move on to process flow. The first process flow is linear process flow. See, linear process flow executes each of the 5 framework activities. What are the 5 framework activities? Communication, planning, modeling, construction, and deployment. So linear process flow executes each of the 5 framework activities in sequence, beginning with communication and ending with deployment. Look into the figure. You can see that it is arranged in a sequential manner, starting from communication to deployment. Now, the second process flow is iterative process flow. Here, it repeats one or more of the activities before proceeding to the next. So, it keeps on repeating the activities before proceeding to the next activity. Let's see the figure. See, here you can see communication and from starting from communication to deployment, it is arranged accordingly. But see, planning takes over so many times, modeling takes over so many times, construction takes over so many times. So some steps keeps on iterating. That is known as iterative process flow. Next is evolutionary process flow. An evolutionary process flow executes the activities in a circular manner. See, let's take a look on the figure. See, communication, planning, modeling, construction, deployment. Then After deployment, the work product or the increment is released. Then again it goes to the communication part. Likewise, it keeps on rotating. It takes a circular manner. Now, next one is parallel process flow. In parallel process flow, activities executes parallel with other activities. One or more activities executes parallel with other activities. Let's take a look into the figure. See, when communication and planning are going on, at the same time modeling is going on, and it keeps on working there, and it is parallelly processing. So these are the 4 process flow associated with a software process. Hope you all have understood. We'll move on to the next topic, that is defining a framework activity. So let's see how can we define a framework activity. Here I am depicting it with an example. For example, I have chosen a small software process requested by one person or at a remote location with simple, straightforward requirements. I don't have to take so much time on the requirements. So for a small software projects, how my framework activity can be identified. The only necessary action is phone conversation and task set that the action focuses on. See, I need to know the requirements. I know it is a straightforward requirement, but doing the first step as communication, I need only to do a simple step, that is phone conversation. So what are the tasks set that I can do with this phone conversation? First task set I'm doing is that make contact with stakeholders via telephone. See, if I'm using a phone conversation for knowing the problem or knowing the software, I need to make contact with a stakeholder through a telephone. Then discuss requirements and I'll take notes on that. Organize notes into a brief written statement of requirements. Email to stakeholder for review and approval. I cannot decide on myself, right? So what I do is I'll collect all these, take notes on the basis and organize notes into a brief statement and pass it over to the stakeholder via email and wait for the approval of the stakeholder. Suppose if the project was considerably more complex with many stakeholders, each with a different set of requirements, the communication activity may change, right? So that time, if it is a complex process or it's a complex project, we cannot directly make a communication through a phone, right? So we have to go through some different actions or different steps. I have to do an inception step, an elicitation step, elaboration step, a negotiation step, specification and validation. So for a simple software project, I have a different task set, and for a complex software project, I have a different task set. This is how we identify a task set. Okay, the same what I said, the communication activity might encompass little more than a phone call with the appropriate stakeholder. Then, how can we identify a task set? See, each software engineering action can be represented by a number of different task sets. Let's see how can we identify this. See, first of all, I'm giving a definition for what is a task set. A task set defines the actual work to be done to accomplish the objectives of a software engineering action. So, in order to take over the objectives of a software engineering action, we are defining a task set. So, we should choose a task set that best suits the needs of the project and characteristics of our software project. What does this mean? This means that software engineering action can be adapted to the specific needs of the software project and characteristics of the project team with which the software is being developed. See, for example, if we are choosing a relatively small project, then the task set for requirements gathering might be like what we'll do. The steps we have previously done, right? Make all list of stakeholders for the project. After we're getting the list, invite all stakeholders to an informal meeting. In the meeting, ask each stakeholder to make a list of features and functions that are required. Discuss the requirements and build a final list. Prioritize requirements, not areas of uncertainty. These are the simple steps if we are choosing for a small or going for a small project. Now we have another concept known as process patterns. See, why we are choosing for a process pattern? Let's see. See, here we are given a definition. Before going into the definition, I'll say a simple word on why process pattern is needed. See, every software team encounters problems as it moves through the software process, right? Am I right? Yes. So, a process pattern describes a consistent method for describing problem solutions within the context of the software process. So patterns insistently gives us solutions for our problems. Okay. Let's see how it gives. See, by combining patterns, a software team can solve problems and construct a process that best meets the needs of a project. Before going into that, we'll see how it works. A process pattern describes a process-related problem that is encountered during software engineering work. Then it identifies the environment in which the problem has been encountered and then suggests one or more proven solution to the problem. Okay. Likewise, it suggests solutions so we can combine so many patterns. Now, patterns can be defined at any level of abstractions. That is, in some cases, a pattern might be used to describe a problem associated with a complete process model. But in other situations, patterns can be used to describe a problem associated with a framework activity or an action within a framework activity. So, for defining a pattern, we have a specific template. Okay, let's see what are the templates. So, templates for process pattern or describing a process pattern include first one, that is pattern name. The pattern is given a meaningful name describing it within the context of the software process. For example, we have encountered a problem in technical review stage means we will give the pattern name as technical review. So whatever the problem we are encountering in the context of the software process, we are giving the pattern the same name. Okay. Second one is forces. The environment in which the pattern is encountered and the issues that make the problem visible and may affect its solution. So forces are something which provides the environment in which the problem is visible. Okay. Now the next feature in the process pattern template is type. Types are of three types, that is stage pattern, task pattern and phase pattern. Let's see each one of individually. First we'll look onto what is stage pattern. So stage pattern defines a problem associated with a framework activity for the process. A framework activity focuses multiple actions and work tasks. So the stage pattern incorporates multiple task patterns that are relevant to this stage. So it is associated with a framework activity for the process. That is known as stage pattern. Now let's see what is task pattern. Defines a process problem associated with a software engineering action or work task and relevant to successful software engineering practice. So something related, some problem which is related to a work task is known as task pattern. Let's see, move on to the next type, that is phase pattern. So phase pattern defines the sequence of framework activities that occur within the process even when the overall flow of activity is iterative in nature. So it focuses on how the sequence of framework activities are being done. So the next process pattern is initial context. Initial context describes the conditions under which the pattern applies. See how the context is being defined. For example, we can say that planning pattern requires customers and software engineers establishing a collaborative communication, right? Then a project scope, project constraint, etc. So we'll define the context, the first context in which the problem is being defined. Then as the resulting context describes the conditions that will result once the pattern has been successfully implemented upon completion of the pattern. Then we have related patterns, provides a list of all processes that are directly related to the current pattern. This may be represented as a hierarchy or in some other diagrammatic form. Either using a table format, we can represent the list of all processes, or in any other format. Then we have non-uses and examples. Indicate the specific instances in which the pattern is applicable. So, these are the templates or features that have been included while writing a template for process pattern. We have pattern name, forces, type is of 3 types: stage pattern, task pattern, phase pattern, initial context, resulting context, related patterns, and non-uses and examples. Move on to the next topic, that is process assessment and improvement. See, the existence of a software process provides no guarantee that software will be delivered on time, that it will meet the customer's needs, or that it will exhibit the technical characteristics that will lead to long-term quality characteristics. So we cannot ensure any timely basis or any fixed schedule, or we cannot provide or we cannot satisfy the customer's needs. Okay. So the process itself can be assessed to ensure that it meets a set of basic process criteria that have been shown to be essential for a successful software engineering. Okay. So we have for this successful software engineering, we have provided different approaches to assess and improve. What are they? Let's see. The first method is SCAMP. SCAMP means Standard CMMI Assessment Method for Process Improvement. See, actually this provides a 5-step process assessment model that incorporates 5 phases. Let's see what are the 5 phases. Initiating, diagnosing, establishing, acting, and learning. I repeat, this provides a 5-step process assessment model that incorporates 5 phases: initiating, diagnosing, establishing, acting, and learning. Now let's move on to the second standard, that is CBA IPI. What is CBA IPI? CMM based appraisal for internal process improvement. This standard provides a diagnostic technique for assessing the relative maturity of a software organization. It doesn't look on to the quality or the schedule or the customer's needs and all, but it look on to the software organization. Now we'll move on to the next standard, that is SPICE. SPICE ISO IEC 15504. So let's see what is SPICE standard. It is a standard that defines a set of requirements for software process assessment. The intention of the standard is to assist organizations in developing an objective evaluation of any defined software process. Whatever the process we are defining, the organizations are to be responsible in developing an objective evaluation. So they focus mainly on the organization. Next standard is ISO 9001-2000 for software. So many are familiar with the word ISO, right? So let's see what this standard is up to. This is a generic standard that applies to any organization that wants to improve the overall quality of the products, systems, or services that it provides. Therefore, the standard is directly applicable to software organization and companies. See, all these standards, they are basically based on software organizations, apart from the first standard, which focuses on a 5-step process assessment. So for ISO, it is a general standard which applies to any organization and that wants to improve the overall quality of the products, systems, services, whatever it is related to the software process. So I have come to the conclusion of the topic software framework activity. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much.